Greetings, stranger, and welcome to the entrance of the Petal District. Sprawling above the rest of Absalom from its perches on Eridan's Hill, this is the wealthiest area of the wealthiest city in the Inner Sea. It is named after the abundance and variety of flowers that grow in the gardens of the estates here, each carefully curated by a professional gardener, of course. Tonight I wish to tour you around this remarkable part of the city. Along the way, we will be admiring no fewer than 5 manors, 3 palaces, and even a private castle. Not to mention the abundance of other estates and buildings that dot the landscape around the hill. We will mostly stick along the main roads that circle us gently southeastwards towards Eastgate. We do not need to get too close to the nobility's homes to see their splendour. That said, do take note of the more normal-sized buildings and roads around us too. Regular townhouses far outnumber multi-acre estates even here, but they cling to the medial edge of the district, as if scared to get too close to their wealthier counterparts. Consequently, the Petal District is dominated financially, politically, spatially, and notably by its noble families. Their endless scheming among themselves is often referred to as Absalom's shadow war, a rather fantastical term for what is really regular politics, albeit politics accelerated to a pace and scale almost beyond comprehension. I will try to integrate you into the Shadow War's latest events where I can, but I do warn you that it is an endless battle, because it has been raging on for the best part of 5,000 years already, with no abatement in sight. Now then, with all this in mind, are you ready to begin? Well, if so, hop onto the carriage, and let's get underway. The very first location I would like to draw your attention to is all the way up there to the north, backing up against the city wall. Note its striking Thuvian design, with the sandstone construction and enthusiasm for obelisks. These betray the estate as Palace Ormuz, the home to one of Absalom's most highly respected houses. Scion Lord Yamthar has an almost childlike passion for all things mechanical or automatic, and can be persuaded to sponsor many a talent or rising star in these fields. Simultaneously, House Ormuz hosts great intellectual forums in the palace's many salons, wherein academics and scholars endlessly debate and muse on everything, ranging from philosophy to military strategy. Here in the Petal District, entry is, of course, by invitation only, and it is the career goal of many professional academics in Absalom to receive one. Politically, House Ormuz takes after its family's home state in many ways. Just as Thuvia sells its life-extending elixirs to anyone with more money than the competition, so do the salons of Palace Ormuz serve as neutral territory for any faction influential enough to warrant Scion Lord Yamthar's attention. In this way, the family rarely sees any conflict or rivalry, being happy simply to facilitate others. One small exception for this does exist, though: Scion Lord Yamthar's equally zealous pursuit of ancient Giscan artifacts. If you come across one of those, he will happily buy it from you for a generous sum. Be warned, though, that trickery will probably result in your swift and inconspicuous death, in a manner totally untraceable back to the palace. It is perhaps due to the family's relative neutrality that the satrap, that is, nomarch, of the Petal District is one Lord Urkon, also of House Ormuz. Indeed, he is the younger, yet older-looking, brother of Scion Lord Yamthar. He was once considered the most handsome bachelor in all Absalom, but his time in office seems to have aged him considerably these past few years. Conversely, Scion Lord Yamthar seems to have maintained his mid-20s for the past 3 decades, a fact that has generated many rumours about his family's ties to Thuvia and its potions of eternal life. However, a further discussion about this will have to wait for a more appropriate tour. For now, Let me instead divert your attention to this next estate along the hill. This resplendent residence is also a palace, as well as one of the most infamous locations to thieves across the entire city. This is Morilla Palace, home to Scion Lord Kiledo and his extended family, almost all of whom are experts in the arts of assassination, trap-making, and other nefarious deeds. You may recall that House Morilla is ultimately in charge of Absalom's most famous assassination group, the Guild of Wonders, based in Westgate. Well, let us just say that House Morilla often takes its work home. The servants there are highly paid and highly paranoid, because a single master copy of every trap and magical ambush scattered around the palace simply doesn't exist. It seems each family member is responsible for protecting a different element of the estate. The most bemusing aspect of this is that there is not even anything especially noteworthy kept within Morilla Palace itself. I mean, there are, of course, priceless paintings and heirlooms dating back hundreds, perhaps even thousands of years, but frankly, this is par for the course here in the Petal District. Yet that has not stopped countless thieves from falling victim to one of the palace's many traps. Their lives are normally ended in creative and distastefully gory ways. Over time, keeping track of their deaths led to the creation of the Tally Wall, which is a small shrine to Pharasma, the Lady of Graves, maintained on the estate's eastern wall's outer edge. There is a saying here in Absalom: the smart thief is the one who can avoid 3 places: prison, hell, and Morilla Palace. Now, this third complex was only finished relatively recently, in 4711. Personally, I find it to be one of the most beautiful estates in the district. This is Lantern Lodge, an embassy of sorts constructed by venture captain Amara Lee to advocate for the Pathfinder Society's interests in the far eastern continent of Tianxia. However, it did not take long for the quotidian business of the lodge to change quite drastically, as expats from all Tian countries began to approach it for advice and support where needed. After all, while the nations of Tianxia are as diverse in form and power as the ones here in the Inner Sea, every Tian individual shares one thing in common here in the city at the center of the world: they are all thousands of miles from home. Thus, the Lantern Lodge quickly transitioned to become a cultural center and guidestone for Tian immigrants into Absalom. Today, it helps connect them with city services and advocates on their behalf in public and private politics, including within the Pathfinder Society. As such, this is also one of the few district estates that is open to the general public during the day. It boasts quite beautiful water gardens, I am told. Down here lies another estate open to the public, which also happens to be our first manor house. This older building is the Uiry Manor and Museum, which is perhaps the most popular tourist destination in the district, because it was the location of a macabre atrocity 50 years ago. You see, House Uiry was once a powerful political faction. Its scion was well known during some particularly troublesome developments in the city, and emerged wealthier and more influential than ever before. Then, one fateful night, who should come knocking but a strange visitor? Through magic, wit, or wisdom, the visitor was granted an audience with the Scion Lord, who shortly thereafter dispatched a servant to fetch more wine from another manor. By the time the servant returned, the visitor was gone, and the manor's occupants were dead. No one, not even the children of nameless servants, was spared. Because there were no witnesses, nobody ever knew anything about the culprit, and nobody ever took responsibility either. Some suspected the servant was to blame, and I understand he was indeed interrogated at some length by the Lotus Guard, the local district watch. But ultimately, he was released without charge, and the devastated survivors of House Uiry, lucky enough not to have been home that night, have spent the past 5 decades desperately trying to recover. Today, House Uiry is one of the poorest noble families, and not politically relevant. Their home now sells tickets to tourists to inspect the outlines of their families' bodies on the dusty wooden floorboards. In a cruel twist of fate, the estate overlooking Uiry Manor belongs to the single richest house in Absalom. Up there sits the final palace of the district, Damaq Palace. Home to Scion Lord Kirkis, High Councillor and Chancellor of the Exchequer, the estate long ago decided to incorporate time into its architectural design as a display of wealth. What do I mean by that? Well, House Damaq's members completely redesign and rebuild their home every few decades, each one more fabulous than the last, to keep up with the shifting architectural fashions and styles. In other words, despite being an old and respected estate, Damaq Palace always looks ultra-modern. Having just declared that, though, I should point out to you that its current design is actually quite outdated by their standards, as they haven't restructured the foundations since the beginning of the Age of Lost Omens, which is now over a century ago. They do maintain the facades, which are immaculate, and the colour schemes and garden layouts come and go, but rumours circulate that the pockets of House Damaq might not be as deep as everyone had believed. Make no mistake, though, that the power of Scion Lord Kirkis rivals that of the Primarch himself. Needless to say, the part of town passing us over on the hill now is the richest. Farthest away from the noise of the lower town, closest to the wall for security, and the perfect distance from the kin gate to remain unassuming whilst letting servants attend to every need quickly. And it is at the very end of that road there where we will find the finest brothel in the inner sea, the Silken Court. You might not be able to see it from here, especially in the dark, but do not worry, because the outside of the building is almost plain by Petal District standards. Sturdy, but unassuming, the only notable detail is a large, stained glass window depicting a swarm of wasps surrounding Calistria, the goddess of lust and revenge. If you were to gain entry, though, a difficult task, as it is naturally invitation only, you would be welcomed to an evening of the finest foods, the most expensive wines, and the most entertaining yet discreet carnal pleasures. It is said that, for the right price, anything is possible in the Silken Court, though recently the establishment was acquired by a new owner, Scion Lady Diriana of House Avenstar, so the money-can-buy-anything attitude of its previous owner, Alyssa the Fair, may have changed. Scion Lady Diriana is a deceptively dangerous woman. Born into poverty and sold into slavery, she was purchased and freed at a flesh market by a Calistrian priestess, ostensibly due to divine portent. In the years to follow, Diriana rose to become simultaneously the head of House Avenstar, the head of the Courtesans Guild, a powerful cleric of Calistria herself, as well as the best-connected information broker in the city. So make no mistake that her purchase of the Silken Court from Alyssa the Fair was not made lightly or simply. Despite being intensively enigmatic in many ways, she has always been vocal and clear on one thing. She wishes to see every former slaver in the Absalomian state ruined. Be it financially, mentally, physically, it makes no difference to her. As I explained in my Puddles tour, slavery is now illegal in Absalom, but it was a long practice that has left deep scars on its victims, Scion Lady Diriana among them. Opposite the Silken Court lies Madinani Manor, the home to Absalom's second spell lord and the Archdean of the Ahnkamen, Lady Darkana. I mentioned in my tour of the Wise Quarter that her political manoeuvring has run into some trouble of late, as more and more questions are asked about her use of teleportation magic to bypass normal import routes into the city. This may have painted a rather one-sided view of her, though. I would now like to add that Lady Darkana is also a great friend to the Pathfinder Society, and a likely sponsor of anyone who comes to her with an especially meritorious idea for innovation. That said, you are unlikely to find her in her well-protected home. She prefers to spend every spare second of the day in her offices at the Ahnkamen, working on her own projects. Speaking of proud magical academies, let's turn our heads back to the main road again to behold this upcoming tower wrought of stone and gemstone glass on our right. This is the Lens, and it is the headquarters for the College of Mysteries, Absalom's oldest school of magic. While not as large or well known as the Ahnkamen, which has put great effort into its transnational appeal, the College of Mysteries can correctly claim to be the inheritor of the god Eridan's vision for magical practice in his city. Founded only a few years after Absalom itself as the House of Secrets, the enigmatic order sought to blend the magical traditions of every culture and creed that answered Eridan's call to humanity. Arts arcane, divine, occult and primal were all studied with equitable impartiality by its early practitioners. Their intent was to archive through their membership all forms of magical expression. Thus their focus was not so much on spell casting as on spell crafting, so to speak. However, when the Archlords of Nex founded the Ahnkamen, the Enigmas of the House of Secrets, as they called themselves, saw the writing on the wall. They quickly pivoted and rebranded themselves as the College of Mysteries, and sought to provide instruction to Absalom's elite mages, for staggeringly high tuition fees, of course. This has continued more or less uninterrupted ever since, with the Lens here being erected as a testament to their sincerity. It is important to appreciate that the College of Mysteries serves this dual function today. Its governing body, called the Assembly of Enigmas, views teaching as the transmission of more than knowledge, but of culture and history itself. It has no interest in reaching the thoughts of people beyond the Absalomian state, because those practices do not interest it. In this way, it is able to survive and even flourish so close to the Ahnkamen, which is considerably better funded, easier to enter, and less expensive to attend. Back north again, we can see 2 points of interest side by side. The first, closer to us, is Fiddlemourn Manor, the personal abode of Lord Oved of House Blakros. An eccentric character in an already eccentric family, the middle-aged noble spends most of his days abroad in Taldor or Kadira on family business. Even when he is home, he prefers the company of animals, especially horses and wolfhounds, to the company of people. Consequently, there is more to be said about Fiddlemourn Manor's stables than its architectural style. If you are not an equestrian enthusiast yourself, then your only hope of gaining an audience with Lord Oved is to provide him with ancient coins, of which he is the city's most prolific collector. I mentioned in my docks tour that there is a coin exchange there called concurrent currency, and this is where I would look if you wanted to find some. The second notable estate is next door, so to speak. The sprawling Assyrian complex is known as the Ahnkamen Estate. Simply put, it hosts the most fun parties in the city every fortnight. These are not the most exclusive or the most luxurious, though luxury is certainly not lacking in House Ahnkhamen's pools and manors. The parties are simply the most entertaining. In a town as sodden with politics as the Petal District, it was perhaps inevitable that someone would take it upon themselves to host blowout parties for their own sake. The music, drinks, and dancing run all night long. It might surprise you, though, to learn that the head of House Ahnkamen is the First Lady of Laws, High Councillor Scion Lady Nefer Patra. I wonder if remaining politically neutral has led to a degree of boredom that Scion Lady Nefer Patra satiates with these fetes. Well, whatever the reason, I would encourage you to see if you could attend one in the weeks to come. Incidentally, a student of magical architecture from the Ahnkamen once swore blind to me in the Learned Pig that the Ahnkamen Estate emulates an ancient Assyrian design across all 3 dimensions. Thus, he was convinced that the grounds extended deep underground. Personally, I do not know if that is true or not, but it could be a fun excursion to find out one day. A little beyond the Ahnkamen Estate lies the Erastil Club, Absalom's premier organisation for the slaying of beasts, both regular and rare. Its exclusive location is purely pragmatic, being so close to the Kin Gate, than for any discriminatory purpose. Indeed, anyone can join the club for a modest fee, and progression through its ranks and privileges is strictly meritocratic. Even the wealthiest noble will not gain entry to the wine cellar if they cannot hunt a lion fairly. Access to the most luxurious perks extend well beyond the Erastil Club's grounds, and into every salon and most restaurants in the city, but acquiring this white card access requires one to demonstrate that they have single-handedly hunted down a dragon that has killed innocent people. Not a task for the faint of heart, I would imagine. Naturally, hunting lodges can be controversial, so the Erastil Club does its best to mitigate criticism by donating large sums of money to animal conservation charities. Its governing board also works to ensure that no single species is overhunted, and also has measures in place to prevent people from killing animals unfairly, though I am not entirely sure what these entail. Adjacent to the club is the city's most famous and respected cemetery, called Spiralcross. Burial here is normally reserved for the rich and the famous. Its gravestones and tombs, extending underground like a labyrinth, include primarchs, senior clergy, and members of the High Council. Despite its age and notoriety, there are hardly ever any undead present in the cemetery, and it is considered neutral territory by most of the factions in the Petal District. Indeed, it is far more likely that anyone visiting is attending a rendezvous than a funeral. Spiralcross does have one enduring mystery to it, though. In fact, look, you can see them there. Dancing lights, not unlike the spell, but far more numerous and energetic, populate the cemetery every night, harmlessly flitting hither and thither above the tombs. The phenomenon is clearly magical and quite pretty, I think, but its source and purpose are both unknown. Most locals think it is a complex signalling system for belligerents in the Shadow War, but if so, nobody has taken responsibility or cracked the code. And believe me when I say that every noble family around here has tried. Now ahead of us lies Castle Blakros, the private fortress of that peculiar family. Its design was realized with one purpose in mind: straightforward defense. The walls are 20 feet tall, and the drawbridge is rarely lowered for non-family members. As a family, House Blakros is among the largest and most far-reaching of Absalomian nobility, rising from humble origins as a smuggling ring to become the center of an international mercantile empire. Within these walls lies the Blakros collection, the name given to the thousands upon thousands of artifacts, great and small, that have been acquired by the family through the centuries. Any sufficiently strange artifact may qualify, and some of them are always displayed at the family museum in the Wise Quarter, but others will never leave these walls again. Take a moment to look northwards again and admire the grandeur of the Kin Gate, the city's second largest entrance after the Sallyport. In the early days of Absalom, before it was considered the city at the centre of the world, the Kin Gate was constructed as an independent fortress by the Fey Prince Jeroviel, who had besieged the city. After his eventual defeat and banishment from Golarion, the city's urban planners, on their unstoppable quest for efficiency in all things, integrated the fortress into the expanding city walls, and converted it into the impressive structure you see before you today. The town just beyond is called Copperwood, and it is the home to many labourers and servants who travel daily through the district to work. Many of them find employment here in the Petal District, though jobs are competitive as the pay and perks are both excellent compared to many other districts' opportunities. Just like the Sallyport, the Kin Gate is kept open at all hours during times of peace, because the traffic is steady enough that closing it would lead to a logistical nightmare, quite literally, overnight. Just next to the Kin Gate lies Crescent Manor, the home of the Petal District's second most renowned information broker, Vex Loravox, though most know him by his moniker, Grandmaster Torch. He was once a Pathfinder agent, but he fell foul of a nasty curse in an ancient tomb that left him permanently disfigured and covered in burns that will never heal. For this reason, he left the adventuring life behind and settled in Absalom to seek a new career, which he found buying and selling secrets. While Crescent Manor is his formal residence, I understand that his more regular abode was located somewhere in the siphons beneath the puddles. Better for discretion, I suppose. Regardless, Grandmaster Torch has not been seen in either location for many years now, ever since he instigated something akin to a rebellion against the Pathfinder Society's ruling council. His Shadow Lodge, as he named it, was quickly returned to the fold after several of its key demands were met, but zealous remnants continue to hold Grandmaster Torch as a traitor to the cause. This does make one wonder who has been setting all those lights that burn from the manor's top floor. Well, perhaps you would like to find out, but please wait until after the end of the tour. Now, this building here at the edge of the more regular townhouses is Magpie Manor, a retirement home of sorts. It is traditional for an Absalomian performer who has reached an age where wandering the city streets has become too toilsome to retire to this estate, which is communally run. This latent pool of talent led to the regular wealthy retiring here too, and before long a social contract of sorts had developed. The retired performers of Magpie Manor will charm the other residents and visitors who come to socialise, and in return they will be entitled to the profits of their performances. Now, for the first time on this tour, let's look back towards the city and down this street here. Do you see that statue of a man on his charger steed? Well, be grateful you cannot see it in daylight, or any closer. This is a monument to Primarch Harvi, who defended the city from pirates during the Red Siege of 4499. A grateful conclave of flowers, the governing body of the Petal District, commissioned the work in his honour, but the artist responsible instead created what is usually considered to be the ugliest work of public art in the whole city. The problem lies in the Primarch's face. He looks positively constipated, the gastric distress detracting somewhat from his noble charge. I mention the statue because it has become something of a flashpoint for more or less every major political faction in the city. You see, a few years ago, the Conclave announced that they would like to replace the statue with something less offensive, but predictably, as soon as the consultation process began, they were flooded with suggestions from every direction. Consequently, the process remains ongoing, and is now more contentious than ever, because whichever faction wins will erect a symbol of their influence in the heart of the Petal District. I would like to take you through each major organisation in the Shadow War properly soon, but it lies outside the scope of this tour. One day, though, I promise. Now, this building coming up on our left is Hillview Station, the local district courthouse, and the home to the Lotus Guard. The jail cells within are more like a spacious townhouse than a place for the arrested, but the Lotus Guard is quick to point out that jail is not for punishment, but for assessment. Speaking of, there are always rumours of corruption circulating when it comes to the district guard, but in this case I am not so sure of their veracity. Certainly they are responsible for the oversight of the wealthiest area of the city, so crimes that happen on their watch often have more financial and political fallout than elsewhere, but there is little evidence of any foul play within their ranks. Indeed, the nobles who live in this district almost universally agree on the neutrality and quality of the guards, who enforce the law with professionalism expected by their citizens. The small exception would be a slight bias in the favour of House Morilla, who was responsible for rescuing the guard captain, Folan ap Morilla, from poverty in his youth. Nevertheless, in a town like this, I think that might be as good as you can get. Now, as we come towards the end of the tour, there remain just 2 points of interest outstanding. Both of them are along this final crossroads, one to the north and the other to the south. Turning first to the north, See if you can spy the greenhouse complex nestled bizarrely next to neighbouring estates. Well, that would be the Hothouse, the headquarters for the district council here. The intent, I am told, was for the building to serve as a clever metaphor for the transparency of local government. However, as it is also a functional greenhouse, indeed one home to many exotic plants from across Golarion, it is usually cripplingly hot and muggy to work in. Thus, the local bureaucrats are uncharacteristically short-tempered, and it is only the political savviness of the satrap, Lord Urkon, that anything gets done. This might be the only district in the city where the citizens are consistently more politically engaged and influential than the local politicians are. Finally, turning our heads southwards down the same road, we find the Court of the Black Paper. This aggressively black building is dual-natured. On the surface lies offices for advocates and lawyers interested in taking on unusual cases, while underground lies the city's largest temple to Norgaba, the god of secrets. You may recall from my Puddles tour that the Skin Saw cult in the Puddles also worships Norgaba, but their preferred aspect of the deity is the brutal Father Skinsaw, whereas here he is instead recognized by another title, the Reaper of Reputation. Quite fitting for lawyers, no? Well, in any case, you are not going to be flayed alive if you wish to pay a visit to the law offices here, though you might trip and tumble down the stairs to the temple below, which are purposefully designed to be unsafe to navigate. If you want a proposal creatively blocked, or if you find that you are struggling to extricate yourself from obligations previously signed into contract, I would recommend consulting with the advocates here. They are quite prepared to offer their services, for the right price, of course. Well, that more or less concludes my tour of the Petal District. I hope that I have communicated to you the intensity and intricacy of the Shadow War in Absalom. While it rarely rears its head in this district overtly, make no mistake, the strings are very much pulled from the manors and parlours here. We have now made our way to the border with Eastgate, a quiet and mostly residential area of the city. Its soft rivalry with Westgate is famous throughout Absalom, though many of the locals would scoff at an outsider encouraging animosity between the two. From this expansive and green district maintained by druids, thousands of commuters make their way into every other part of the city to ply their trades. But, as you should know by now, that does not stop Eastgate from holding its fair share of wonders back for itself. So, meet me back here in a few hours, when the sun begins to rise, and we'll go on a tour of that magical commune of Absalom. Well, until then,